Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Thanks for checking out the channel, where today we're going to be talking about the roll of film that I shot in my first ever outing with my film camera. If you didn't check out that video, I will link it down in the description, where I spoke about my journey into film photography so far, my expectations when I shot my first roll of film. But today I want to specifically talk about the film stock and why I chose Kodak Ektar 100 to be the first colour film that I shot in my camera. So I've been a big fan of 35mm film photography for quite a while, definitely longer than I've actually been shooting it. I've been looking for inspiration for a long time, and I've always really enjoyed the Kodak films, especially films such as Portra. But the trouble is, when you're first shooting film, there's a lot of margin for error, whether that is human error, issues with the gear that you buy if you're using a camera for the first time, and putting a roll of Portra 400, for example, which is now astronomically expensive, can sometimes just feel like too much of a risk. So when I was looking to buy my first roll of film, I wanted something that was going to be comparable in terms of the quality, but wasn't going to break the bank just in case something went wrong. And something did go wrong. In my last video, I did mention that when I put a roll of Ektar 100 in my Olympus XA3, the whole film came back blank when I went for the scans, and that's because of an issue with the camera. So I'm really glad I didn't waste my money on a more expensive film stock. And Ektar 100 is classed as a professional film stock from Kodak. The grain is really, really fine, it's really sharp, and it has really vivid color, what's the word? Rendering? Calibration? Whatever the word is, this film just looks really, really good. Sure, you don't get those really nice pastel tones that you get with Portra, but this Ektar film does definitely have a quality to it that just makes it really, really applicable to all kinds of different environments, whether that is nature, fashion, wildlife, just travel photography, whatever it is, this film looks really great in a variety of different settings. So as I'm going through this video and I'm talking about the film, I am going to be putting up some images that I've shot with it, just to add a bit of context behind what I'm explaining so you can see the results. And the first thing that I noticed with this film was how it rendered the colors that would be red, green and blue, so the kind of RGB colors, I suppose. To my eyes, all of those colors are emphasized in this particular film stock, which is really nice because they are colors that are fairly complementary, and they're colors that are all very naturally occurring in day-to-day life, whether that is the green on trees or the blue in the sky. You're going to get some really nice vivid shades, which I just think is really nice if you're into that. Now, I will mention, just being the newbie that I am to all of this at the moment, and I'm not ashamed about it because I think there is a lot of value in this. I shot everything that you're seeing in aperture priority mode, so no manual settings. I didn't overexpose the film in any way. This is just completely stock. So if you're looking to have a similar experience, these are going to be similar to the results that you get depending on your camera and your lens choices, etc. So I mentioned about the kind of low grain and the sharpness of this film, and it's definitely something that I noticed. The images really do pop, and there is a real clarity, some nice kind of crisp edges to all of the details, and I think that is really nice. It's not always something that I think a lot of people think about when they think of film photography. They see film as having almost a kind of low quality look to it, especially people who are unfamiliar with this particular art form. So seeing old technology, old film stocks having this very kind of like high definition look is actually something that is really great to see. And it just means if you're looking to incorporate film photography into some of your digital portfolios, if you're posting on Instagram or Twitter, then your film shots, if you're shooting Ektar, are going to look really good next to some of your digital images because there is a certain level of sharpness there. At least that's what I think. Now, another thing that I quite liked about Ektar was the almost cinematic look that this film stock can achieve. Now, if you are into cinematography or if you're into filmmaking, you might see, in terms of color grading, a really common theme, and that is using blues in the shadows and sort of orange tones in some of the highlights to give that really kind of filmic cinematic look. And I noticed with Ektar 100 that any areas in shadow definitely have this blue cast to them, which makes me think of a more sort of like cinematic look. In some of these shots that you're seeing now, I think the shadows really complement the rest of the colors in the actual, composition, and for me it just makes for really pleasing results. Now, for any of you street photographers or those interested in street photography, Ektar 100 is a great film for that. I mentioned that reds are emphasized or are rendered really vibrantly with Ektar. So if you see those kind of classic stop signs that you'll find on street corners, or if you have some red brick buildings and some urban settings, then Ektar is going to render those scenes really, really well. You can see in some of these shots that, those elements really do pop. And again, this was something that was a nice, pleasant surprise for me. Now, let's just round up by mentioning a few things that I'm not really a fan of, but these are all things that are just down to personal preference, and all the things that are great about it can also be things that people don't like, because this is all very subjective. Now, for me personally, in terms of my preference for kind of like aesthetic and what I love in images, I'm not a massive fan of sort of vibrant blues and greens. Just saying. It's just not something that I've ever really resonated with. I like things that are a bit more muted, and it's probably why I've enjoyed looking at images shot on Portra for so long. But this is just something that I'm comparing to how I edit my digital images, and it's something that I need to get away from because 35mm film is very different. I keep it separate to a lot of my digital photography, and I need to just take it for what it is, which is a really beautiful look. I do think Ektar looks great, but there are just certain images that I see when I look at those really kind of bright blue skies and those kind of really vibrant green bushes, and for me it's just not something that I'm used to seeing in my own photography. I typically like really warm hues. I'm very much kind of into my sort of like autumn colors. Autumn is my favorite season. I love all of those golden browns, those yellows, oranges, and for me I find that this Ektar film, it actually pushes oranges more towards red. So in this shot, which is taken against a kind of really orange brick wall, the wall to me looks more red than it did when I shot it. So it's again just a personal preference. I would love to see more sort of like warm tones captured more accurately, but there are just other film stocks that will do that better. And it's not to say that the reds aren't warm, because they are, but they're just pushed in a direction that's slightly different to what I particularly like and what I was seeing on the day. All that being said, I do really like Ektar 100. If you are looking for a Kodak professional film stock that is on the more affordable end of the spectrum, obviously Portra is becoming super expensive, other film stocks are becoming more difficult to find, and Ektar is fairly easily accessible for the most part. Obviously this completely depends on where you are in the world, but here in the UK I was able to buy loads of rolls of this just off of Amazon on Prime delivery next day. So it's super easy to get your hands on, and I definitely will be keeping this in my sort of film rotation. It's one that I do want to spend a bit more time with, just because it is something different to what I'm used to. And for me, being a professional photographer, I'm using this 35mm photography journey as a sort of a new hobby and something very different to my work that I do with my digital camera. So I should be embracing change, and I definitely think that you guys should as well. So just my 2 cents worth on Kodak Ektar 100. Definitely pick up a roll, see what you think. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, and I hope the images in this video give you a good idea of what to expect. They weren't edited or sort of like retouched in any way. That's just exactly how they were scanned and how they were sent to me. So pretty accurate to the results that you guys will get depending on your scanning and processing options. Anyway guys, as always, thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up. Really helps the video get to more people. And as always, if you want me to do more on film photography, if there's any topics that you want to see covered on this channel, because I'm focusing on everything to do with photography, filmmaking, and the creative life, then leave a comment down below. I would love to hear from you. As always, thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video.